Hello, YouTube. This is Nate from the Playbook Sports Podcast, and I decided to take a moment and look at what happened last night. This is Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. Last night, obviously, we all saw what happened in that Bills-Bengals game, and unfortunately, Damar Hamlin, the safety for the Bills, had to be rushed to the hospital, and there's a lot of speculation about what could have happened, and one of the most recent rumors is this, Commotio Cortis. Now, for those of you who don't know me that well, Yes, I love doing this show, and this show is a ton of fun for me, but my primary job and career is I'm a cardiac ICU nurse. So I see things not like this per se, but I see a lot of things relating to the heart every day at work. And so when I heard, they're doing CPR on him on the field and everything, I was like, I wonder what's going on. And then all these cardiologists have been coming out recently trying to explain what they think may have happened. And one of these ones kind of stuck with me. And so I've done a little bit more research on it because, again, it's not something I see a lot in the ICU. So I decided I'll take a moment and explain it to those of you in layman's terms and try and break it down in an easy way for everyone to understand and kind of follow along. But before I start that, I do want to say one thing. Damar Hamlin, we're all thinking about you. We're praying for you, praying for your family, praying for a speedy recovery. And just for good news, haven't heard anything other than that he's stable in the ICU currently in Cincinnati, getting some of the best care he can get there. So hopefully he comes through this okay. We're all rooting for you. If you haven't already and you feel compelled to donate, just Google the Damar Hamlin GoFundMe page because that is growing like crazy. He donates this money to these kids for toys and has grown exponentially in the last 24 hours, which is awesome to see the football community come together. I intend to make a donation to this page in the name of the Playbook Sports Podcast just to show support for him and his family. So let's talk about the play just a little bit. So T. Higgins, wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, catches the pass, turns to go upfield. Damar Hamlin meets him. It's a big collision, but it's not anything unusual in the world of football. These guys are huge dudes. I think we forget about that because they're all to scale on the NFL field. These are not small individuals. These are big guys running at high speeds. And we see the collision, and Damar Hamlin gets up. And then you just can kind of tell from behind him when they show the replay, which don't watch it. You won't get anything from it. It's just hard to watch. It made me sad. And this messed with me all night. I don't like the Bills. I'm right up there, top of Buffalo Bills haters. But they're obviously in my thoughts and prayers right now. But that made me sick to my stomach to kind of watch what happened and to see the players and fans' reactions. And I'm going to take my hands off the table so I stop shaking the camera. But he just kind of went slack and then collapsed. And fortunately, people responded quickly, and they're giving him his best chance at survival. So then the question becomes, what happened? Did he pass out and just collapse? So on and so forth, what happened? But then you hear they did CPR for 9 to 10 minutes on him, so he was pulseless for a period of time and had to be transported to the hospital in the ICU, intubated and sedated. So he's got a breathing machine while they try and figure out what went wrong. Here's what I think went wrong. It's called Commotio Cortis. And I think this because I've heard cardiologists talk about it, and I've kind of done my own research about it, so you'll see me looking down and referencing the notes I've taken from just the research I've done this afternoon. But in order to really talk about this, you need to have a basic understanding of the cardiac cycle. So don't judge me. I know all of my coworkers, if you guys decide to watch this, you're going to see this rough look of the cardiac cycle. It's not pretty. It's not meant to be pretty, okay? It's basic stuff. So Commotio Cortis. So here's your basic cardiac cycle, right? And it's obviously backwards because this is flipped. So P wave, QRS complex, T wave. P wave, you have the depolarization of your atria. QRS here, depolarization means they fire. So you have the depolarization of your atria. Then this is where your atria will repolarize, which is where they relax. Remember that term. Repolarization equals relaxing. That's where the atria will relax, and this is where your ventricles typically fire, is in your QRS complex. Your T wave, this is the most important one for this. This is where your ventricles repolarize. This is where they're supposed to be doing nothing, refilling, relaxing. So what happens in Commotio Cortis? What happens is you are, for example, a baseball player. This is where we see it most often is in baseball, is when a player gets a baseball hit back at them for a pitcher, and it hits them right in the chest, right in the sternum, essentially. And you get hit with enough force where you're hit just in the right spot, which is right here. And I'll talk about it more as we go here. Right here. The front half of your T wave, where your atria are relaxing. You're hit with enough force to where you actually fire extra mechanical channels in your heart, where now your cardiac muscle is flooded with a ton of positive ions that it's flooded whenever it should be depolarizing in the QRS complex. So now you have an extra amount of energy here that causes your T wave to actually be kind of like your QRS complex. It's not, obviously it's different, but for simplification part. And now it triggers your ventricles to kind of freak out because they're supposed to be relaxing and now they're being fired again. That puts you into a rhythm that's just going to look like a squiggly line. This, right there. Ventricular fibrillation, perfect drawing to scale. And ventricular fibrillation is not compatible with life. It's a lethal heart rhythm. The amount of energy it takes to do something like this, and I want to talk about how rare this is. This is not something that happens very often. Obviously, we haven't seen something like this happen on a football field, I don't think, ever. It artificially depolarizes your ventricles at the wrong time, putting you in VFib. Now, he stood up after this hit, and then he went slack. So he was, this is kind of impressive, the adrenaline that he was going through, the amount of, like I said, just the adrenaline he was going through, he was able to stand up and then collapse in a rhythm where he's not pumping blood to his brain or the rest of his body. Very, honestly, impressive that his body was able to do that. But he's hit just right, goes into this fatal rhythm, and in cases of this, about 60% of cases of this, it's fatal. In 60% of cases, even with a timely defibrillation, which they did on the field, thankfully. So 40% chance of survival if defibrillated correctly. That number drops to 20% if it just takes a little bit too long to get shocked. So then it becomes a 20% survival rate. So the fact that he's in critical but stable condition is nothing short of a miracle. Not long ago, this used to be considered, it was, no matter what, you couldn't resuscitate them. You could not resuscitate these people. Fortunately, medicine has evolved and we're able to now. So let's talk about the unlikelihood of this happening. This section here, your T wave, is approximately 100 milliseconds, and that's in a normal sinus rhythm. This gentleman was playing football on a Monday night in front of a huge crowd. You don't think he's a little bit tachycardic? Definitely was. So this is even smaller. You have to hit the front side, the front half of a T wave, which is in a normal, slow, regular heart rate, is 40 to 60 milliseconds, really. I can't put that into terms for you because I just don't know. It's not a long amount of time, as you can imagine. They're milliseconds, 40 to 60 of them. And you have to be hit in the perfect spot on your heart, which makes it even less likely because your ventricles, when we say they are repolarizing here and depolarizing, they don't all do it at the same time. You start out with the Purkinje fibers, and then it works its way up the ventricle. So he had to have got hit with the right amount of force at the perfect millisecond in time and in the right spot on his ventricles to cause that extra excitability and cause him to go into ventricular fibrillation. The likelihood of this is so incredibly small that it's just not something you would expect to see from a shoulder to the chest. Something small like a baseball or a hockey puck hitting you in that spot, it's more likely that you hit that, but the shoulder hitting a certain spot with the perfect amount of force, which, like I said, and I can't put this into real good terms for you because I'm not a big energy guy, but you need 50 joules of energy. At least 50 joules of energy in order to cause that kind of a reaction in your heart. The odds of it happening are so incredibly small. And then it puts you into that rate of VFib, and that's not normally survivable. So thankfully, Damar Hamlin had a good medical staff on hand, a world-class hospital close by to get him to quickly, to get him stable. And now we just got to figure out a way to prevent this from happening, which is unlikely because it's such a freak accident. That's something we have to remember. Everyone's going to be afraid of football now. It's such a freak accident, and it's way more likely to happen to somebody playing baseball or hockey, or even martial arts if you get punched in the right spot. There's a video, don't go watch it because I'm telling you to, but there's a video that I saw of a martial artist. Guy got punched in the chest, he stumbled backwards, standing, fine, collapsed. And I didn't see a timely defibrillation, so I don't know what happened to him, but it's likely that he passed away from that. This is such a dangerous, dangerous thing to happen, and it's so rare and so unlikely that I would have never thought that this happened, but it just looks like it based on everything we're seeing and hearing. So that's kind of a basic breakdown of this condition and what it means and how unlikely it is. And hopefully, Damar, you're okay and you fight through this. And even with a timely defibrillation, it more than likely can be fatal. So the fact that he's stable is fantastic news, and we're all pulling for you, and we're all big Bills people and rooting for them and their community throughout this process. I'm certain I missed things. Please comment down below. Let me know what I missed. Tell me where I was wrong, where I was right, if you'd like to. But this is bigger than football, and I'm glad. Good on the NFL for canceling the rest of the game and not forcing these players to go out and play. Good on the coaches for coming together and saying, yeah, we don't care what the NFL says. We're not playing the rest of this football game. And shame on you, Bart Scott. I've talked about him before. Bart Scott blamed T. Higgins for this and saying, oh, T. Higgins lowered his helmet into him. Incorrect. He used his shoulder, which is what you're supposed to lead with. But for you to go out and blame T. Higgins and say, oh, Higgins' hit was illegal and dirty, shame on you. That's disappointing, to say the least. ESPN, this man should not be employed by you anymore. He said earlier things about Tua, which obviously I didn't like. But then to go and say this and to say that T. Higgins has any hand in being blamed for this is just disgusting. So shame on you for that. And let's just all come together and hope that Damar Hamlin comes through this and we can see him on the football field down the road. Who knows? But if you guys have any questions, please feel free to comment down below. And thank you for your time.